Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzales, joined by Stu Burguiere, Jason Buttrill, and we have BlazeTV's own, the greatest social media guru of all time, Jason Howerton. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I wasn't serious when I said to do that, but thank you.
I mean, you just sold yourself out. I wasn't going to tell the audience that you literally just told me to do that, and now they know.
Well, now that I have to live up to that, great. Awesome. Thank you.
Stu, top story.
I guess Micheal Cohen.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're doing the dirty work so that everyone else doesn't have to go back and watch it.
Let me bail you out of having to watch that testimony back again.
Yeah, exactly. Jason.
We'll go from that dog and pony show to the dog and pony show in Hanoi. So dog and pony shows all over the place.
Everywhere. Everything's burning down. Howerton.
The climate change apocalypse is upon us. And so I want to talk about how serious the Democrats are at tackling this, because they're doing more things right now to combat it than ever before.
I mean, I'm really thankful that they are, because
just wait.
I don't want to die.
Just wait.
All right, a lot to get into, obviously, but first we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. American Financing is not for people like Stu who want to do ridiculous deals.
I don't know why we have to bring this up every time. You know, I'm a big fan of debt. I'm the king of debt outside of Donald Trump. I'm like the #2 king of debt. I'm the prince of debt. But American Finance actually has responsible mortgages, and they actually walked me through all the options. When I was buying my house, I knew we had American Finance, and I knew I was going to call them because, you know, Glenn's been talking about them for a while. But I called like 10 or 12 different companies because I'm obsessive about such things. And
you want the irresponsible.
I wanted the most irresponsible possible. Shockingly, that's not really the business American Financing is in. If you're,
it's like a mafioso loan shark. Every time you mention this, I'm like, who are these people?
As long as it's paid by the first, my knees are intact.
Legs don't get broke.
You know, Glenn, when he talked about this, they didn't make crazy loans, and that's the reason they survived so well through the financial collapse. And Glenn didn't want to do business with them at first because he doesn't really like the mortgage companies. He was worried about these loans. He was calling out this, you know, this collapse in like 2006 and 2007. So he didn't want to go into that business. But American Financing called before. They said, Glenn said, call me back if you guys are still alive in a couple of years, and they were. And so they called back and they said, we're fine. We weren't doing those things that you were complaining about. And they've been able to run a business that gets you the best deals. They can explain everything really easily, even for morons like me. And they make the process super easy.
And they're smart enough not to do business with you. So I feel like that's the big sell here.
I don't know why rejecting my business is the headline.
That's a very good point. I'm glad someone finally brought that up.
I mean, seriously, hurry up and go to AmericanFinancing.net, or you can call 800-906-2440. All right, Micheal Cohen. Oh my gosh.
You know, Micheal Cohen took out a $130,000 home equity loan to pay off Stormy Daniels. I don't think American Financing would take that business either. Throwing that out there. Micheal Cohen was testifying today, and really, Dog and Pony Show is a great way of talking about it because we really got nothing new. We got some things that would be pretty big, and some things that were pretty credible, but never did either really intersect, because anything that Micheal Cohen says that doesn't have intense amounts of evidence to back it up is not worth listening to. The man, his first language is lying. He has never been a guy who could even figure out how to say something that was actually true. And that is, it's hard to really take anything he says seriously. He has some evidence to back up some of his claims. Most of that, though, was stuff that we kind of already knew, the Stormy Daniels stuff. He did provide some evidence to back up his storyline on that, but we already knew that kind of was going on, and I think people have already priced that in when it comes to Donald Trump and the entire administration. It's kind of interesting going back to the campaign. You know, Micheal Cohen was one of the people that we railed about a million times and said, you know, Donald Trump keeps saying he surrounds himself with the best people, but I mean, Flynn, you know, Bannon, Omarosa, Cohen, Manafort. These are not the best people, and that's, you know, it's come back over and over and over again to burn the administration, having people surrounding you of this caliber. One of the strange twists in this whole thing is, in a way, Trump is kind of inoculated from getting in trouble over this stuff because all the people with inside knowledge are so untrustworthy that you can't believe anything they say. So it's kind of an interesting way to build a business. You can't really get in trouble when everyone around you is constantly lying. I mean, Roger Stone's another one. I mean, this is it's just a really bad group of people. And, this idea that Cohen has switched, maybe he has. I mean, people do have these moments where they have been lying and abusive and all of these things for their entire lives. And one day they hit that, that moment, the come to Jesus moment where they all of a sudden are good people and everybody deserves that chance.
The problem with this, though, is that you pick the worst person. Like, even if he did have that come to Jesus moment, that guy doesn't belong in a court. He just doesn't. So even if he's completely changed, he is so completely not credible.
You're just saying he doesn't belong in a court because he has no credibility. So
right.
It doesn't matter what he says.
It does not matter what he says. And I think I was forced to watch 2 hours of this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I really could have stopped after, I think it was Congressman Green from Tennessee. Like, it was just the ultimate smackdown, and it really kind of put this in perspective. But I think he called him a fake witness. He laid out how he had, was a fraud in all of his taxes, how he didn't pay, a bunch of money, he filed tax returns that were completely fraudulent for like multiple different years, all this stuff. And at the end of it, you're like, wow, why is this guy still here? Yeah. Like this, he actually said, and this is the person you bring in as your star witness. You were like, what?
I got into a little bit of trouble from Blue Check Twitter. For saying like
that's when it's serious, by the way.
I know that's like it gets real dicey, but everybody's getting so giddy about this. Like, oh, look what he's saying about Trump, and like they're trying to dunk on him, and it's like this thing. And I was just like, but is there evidence though? Right. Like what are we doing? Like, are we just getting the media soundbite headlines that we can like pontificate over, or are we actually getting anywhere? We got nowhere today.
All the evidence I thought was very refutable. Like the check is interesting to me that the president signed.
Unless the subject was Stormy Daniels' porn payment, then maybe you could.
But even in that case, I'm like, the Cohen is so discredited at this point. You don't bring him in front of the committee. You bring in the other people that he mentioned. Glenn made a really good point today about the Nixon thing, about how it came out later just through people like in committee, stuff like this. Oh, there was probably recordings of some of these conversations. Like some of the stuff would be interesting to look into. But you have the Trump Organization CFO. Well, like, has he come and talked to the committee yet? Have they called him to come in front of the committee?
They're saying that he may be next.
Now I am tons more interested in that. Not what Micheal Cohen says about it, but what this guy says about it. Then it's more credible, a lot more credible.
Yeah, and it may lead to something. I mean, I remember when, I can say this because Glenn's not here, Jose Canseco came out and said, he wrote a book about all the steroids in the major leagues. And I remember thinking to myself, who the hell would listen to Jose Canseco? He's the least credible person on earth. And then
he was just tweeting about aliens.
Yes, exactly. Oh. But then he was totally right? Like, I mean, these things wound up completely paying off. So some of this stuff may wind up being true. It's not that you can dismiss everything that Cohen says. But unless there's real evidence behind it, you have to go into it completely skeptical.
Which the media has absolutely done. So skeptical.
Yeah, this is what's so frustrating about it. It's like they all knew he was a dirtbag in 2016. Now he's his saint. Yeah. And every big Trump supporter knew he was a saint in 2016, and now he's a dirtbag. I'm proud to say I knew he was a dirtbag both times. He's always been a dirtbag. This is who the guy is. And the idea that they can trot him out there to get a couple of days of publicity, while this North Korea thing is going on, is just like it's another element of the circus, and it means very little, if anything.
Your brain on politics the same way that Harry Reid says he misses George W. Bush. Yeah. Like, it's like, come on. Like, really, people.
Really, the only reason to do this was just to embarrass, I think, Donald Trump. Yes. I think that was the only reason. And even his prepared part of his statement, there were parts in there where you're like, why did you even put that in there? Yeah. Like saying he's a racist and saying, like all this hearsay stuff. And, oh, yeah, he said this. There's no evidence of any of this stuff. Like, and he was even called on that. Do you have evidence that he was, like, talking about black people? He was like, yeah, because there's no executive at Trump Organization. That's my evidence.
I loved that, too, because they were like, well, did you tape any of these conversations? You seem to tape everyone else in the world, so do you have any tape recordings of this? Well, no.
Or when Debbie Wasserman Schultz asked him, how do we corroborate what you're saying? And he was like, I don't know. Why are we here?
Right, then.
Why are we here today?
I mean, I will say, I think another reason other than to embarrass Trump was, the Democrats are just foaming at the mouth to be able to produce something in order to say, Trump should be impeached, because we have Ms. Omar, who is already saying, I believe that impeachment is inevitable. But as we have already called, it is also a terrifying notion. Pence is an ideologue, and the ideology he holds is more terrifying to me and my constituents.
There we go.
And we have not had a full impeachment that removes the president from office. Nations struggle anytime they overthrow a dictator, and Trump really has the markings of a dictator.
There we go.
Finally, someone said it.
Finally, someone said it for the 5 millionth time. But only a Hitler comparison
Yes.
coming. It would fill out the role there. Look, they want to. Obviously, the far left, the Ocasio-Cortezes of the world and Omars of the world want to impeach him. I think politically, as Glenn has been saying, the hip replacement Democrats, as opposed to the hip new Democrats, are smart enough to know that it's really not a good road for them to go down. Because, even if they, Trump has lots of flaws that they can try to exploit in a campaign. To go down that road and people will just line up behind him on the other side of that impeachment, it doesn't make much sense.
Turn him into a martyr really is all you do.
Yeah. Buttrill, the dog and pony show happening overseas.
Yeah, I'm calling it a dog and pony show because ultimately that's what it is. But don't get me wrong. It's always good when rival nations, especially nuclear-powered nations, are getting together and talking. So that's always a good thing. The problem is that they're both engaged in the same exact dog and pony show, and it's really for their own people. The president for us to make it seem like there's a lot more progressing that actually is. And Kim Jong-un for his own people, just to say, hey, look, we're real people and we're a real nation. Check us out. I'm getting selfies with the President of the United States. There's been two things that have come out of this that both nations have got. And we have both got something. Kim Jong-un has gotten us to concede to not do any more offensive exercises with South Korean military. We're not doing that anymore. We've completely stopped that. We used to do that every single year, and I was a part of that. It's a very big thing, and Kim Jong-un hates it. North Koreans hate it. We stopped it. So win for them. On the other hand, they have stopped ICBM tests. We wanted them to do that. We didn't really start ramping this up until they showed that they could fire a missile that did have the capability, or at least had the thrust to make it here. That's when this whole thing kicked off, and we got close to war, I think. They now stopped that, which is good. North Korea has not stopped producing enriching uranium. They have not stopped producing nuclear weapons. The latest estimate is 60 nuclear weapons that they have.
Countries with 60 nuclear weapons don't give out their nuclear weapons.
They're not. No. See, and that goes to my point. Like, we're not progressing further. So we've gotten what we want, and they've gotten what they want, but they're not giving those nukes up. Any talk of denuclearization is just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. They're not going to let those go. They might concede and give up 10, something like that, but they're not giving up all of them.
Can I say that the American in me really, there's one thing that bugs me the most about Trump, and bring on the tweets, is that he calls Kim his friend.
Yes.
It's unreal.
The sweet talk with Kim, I don't care. I know what you're trying to accomplish, and I know in the business world that's how you do it. On the world stage for a guy, all the things that he's done, the horrific, unthinkable things, like, you just don't do that. You can accomplish it without calling him nice names and talking about how wonderful he is. It really, it bugs me really bad.
After the last summit that they had, when he was flying back, he was talking about President Xi Jinping in China, and he goes, as you know, he's now president for life. That's a very good thing. I'm like, no, it's not. No, that's not a good thing.
I mean, we are fond of occasionally saying something like, can you imagine if a Republican did that? I mean, can you imagine the reaction if Barack Obama said, my friend Kim Jong-un, in any context? It would be 6 weeks of programming for us. I mean, the fact that just now goes by with nothing is amazing. And, we used to talk about, I remember when early on, after that first meeting, people used to bring up North Korea as like the big accomplishment of the Trump administration. And really, I mean, you look at that and like, what has really been accomplished? You're right, they've paused testing on one thing, which is big. I mean, it's
only,
a positive.
But can I also say only for us? So like that safeguards us. That does nothing for Japan. That does nothing for our allies in the area. That does nothing for Guam.
Yeah,
for crying out loud.
I mean, it's American interest, and if we can actually stop that, God only knows if they're still trying to, they're doing all sorts of other things to further these goals, as you point out. I mean, if they legitimately have 60 nuclear weapons, they're never giving them up. I mean, I know there's really only been one country in world history that has given up their nuclear weapons, with the exception of the Soviet satellite countries, which were really, I mean, they were Russian weapons being stored there, and it's South Africa. And I think South Africa had a maximum of 5. and they wound up giving them up at one point, which is kind of amazing because once you get them, you don't want to give them up because you are automatically at the table when you have nuclear weapons. It's why countries like them so much. I mean, it's why Kim Jong-un did so much and Kim Jong-il before him to develop them, because he is now getting the respect he's always demanded and believes he's deserved. I mean, I think it was Donald Trump Jr. who tweeted something like, my dad's done more for, this North Korea thing than anybody. I mean, they couldn't even get a meeting. It's like, it wasn't hard to get a meeting with Kim Jong-un. He would have taken a meeting with any U.S. official. It was us saying no to him. That's the reversal, and it's the sort of reversal that we would have all blown our minds about if Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or anybody else had done. I mean, it is something that I think Trump skates a little bit from conservatives on, and I'm glad you brought that up because he really doesn't get much heat from it.
But what if in his meeting he just all of a sudden snaps his neck? You never know. And then we'd be like, that was smart.
So I want to just take that back and just say, so it's a good thing that they're talking. Yeah. It's a good thing for both sides of what they got, but don't expect too much more to come from the future on this. I don't see it going anywhere.
All right, back in a minute. So what you're saying is you sold us something, this Dog and Pony show, and then you took it back and said, never mind.
It's a continued dog.
A lot more to get into, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Cosmo Hurts Kids. So, I mean, it's pretty much all in the title there, right? Cosmo Hurts Kids.
They summarized it well.
Yeah, Cosmo contains, I think we would all agree, pornographic content that is now able to be sold to minors. So our little girls, our little boys have access to all sorts of tips and tricks that you really don't want them knowing about. So Victoria Hearst, who is a member of the Hearst family who owns Cosmopolitan magazine, which I think makes Christmas dinner a little bit awkward, has decided that she thinks that Cosmopolitan magazine should have the states that is harmful to minor laws applied to them, which would mean that kids under 18 would not have access. They could not go in and buy Cosmopolitan. So if you want to hear more about her campaign, which you should because this is something that's affecting our children, there's enough trash in the world that they are going to get their hands on. Go to CosmoHurtsKids.com to find out how you can help with that. All right, Howerton, I'm really glad you're bringing to the table the issue of climate change. It's something that affects all of us. I was just talking about Cosmo Hurts Kids. We've got to protect our children. I also want to protect my child from dying in 12 years like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says we're going to. So thank you for
less than that now. It's at least 11 and a half at this point.
That's great. So you have it. We should get like a countdown clock going.
Because the timeline has moved up dramatically. It used to be like hundreds of years, the world is ending. Now it's like 11 or 12, or 10. I've heard 10 even. So it's getting very...
it depends on how many cows fart.
It does, which is that'll play in later. It is. But AOC is the leading expert on this. She has been to, I think she has like 4 PhDs, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's
something like that.
In climate science. There she is.
Researcher.
Very nice. So she was explaining, she actually made me regret having my son a year ago because of what is coming. And by the time he turns 10, he'll probably be evaporated. Can we get her warning, please? I want to let everybody hear.
There's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult, and it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. Should is it okay to still have children? And I mean, not just financially, because people are graduating with $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 worth of student loan debt, and so they can't even afford to have kids in a house, but also just this basic moral question, like, what do we do? And
it hurts.
And
Can
even
we
if
stop?
you don't have
I
kids,
can't. It physically hurts. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's what bothers me. First of all, can I just say, she's like the female congresswoman version of Michael Scott. I feel like she starts an idea, and then she doesn't really know where it's going, but like she just keeps going.
She just strings words
like
together.
She's like, she'll like stop, and she doesn't really know where it's going, but somehow she just keeps rolling, and words keep coming out.
That's a great point.
It's amazing. And I've heard her do that a lot in interviews. But anyway, the thing that bothers me the most is that there's nothing worse than playing on fear and for politics, right? She's making people, or at least people, think that the world is going to end. There are children going to Congress members and confronting them because they think they are going to die because their parents are telling them, hey, you're going to die.
Which, can we talk about how irresponsible that is for a second?
Horrific. Just completely.
You should want to keep your child innocent for as long as possible.
And feeling safe and not free of anxiety.
Right.
But this type of politics where because they're not getting what they want, we've resorted now to literally moving up the end of the world within 10 years. Like, I don't know how anyone is taken seriously, and they act like this is science. Like, where are we right now?
Well, I was reading in the scientific journal Children's Difficulty Monthly, and it said there's a consensus that children's lives are going to be difficult. Is that what scientists measure? How do they measure difficulty level of future children's lives? I'm not exactly sure.
Suffering index.
Also, I mean, it's okay that children's lives are a little bit difficult. You know what I mean? Like, we're not supposed to be brought on this earth to just have a stress-free life and have everything handed to us. I mean, I think a little paying off, I'm not saying $20,000, $30,000 of debt is responsible, but I'm saying I think paying off a little bit of debt gives you a little bit of character.
Not the worst thing in the world. And I got news for you. Capitalism has made every generation's lives easier. I mean, like, if you look at like how many hours we work to earn the basic needs, it has dropped dramatically for 200 straight years. I mean, this is not like, this is the idea that in the future we're going to somehow forget how to innovate, even if they're completely right on all the science and you give them all of that stuff, like, there are going to be innovations and adaptations that we can't possibly expect.
Okay, so the point is, though, so I got a little carried away. The point is that this is such a serious, dangerous issue, and they're taking it so seriously that they recently, House Democrats called a hearing to go over this stuff and to really problem solve and figure out what we need to do to stop the end of the world from happening. And of the 5 Democrats on that subcommittee, 2 showed up.
Oops.
2 showed up to that hearing. So Louis Gohmert, the congressman from Texas, had to adjourn the meeting because they didn't show up to their own hearing to talk about the thing that supposedly is ending the world in 10 years.
What do you even...
He's speechless.
I'm speechless. I don't know what to say, and I don't know how we're still... I feel like I don't know how, like, they're not laughed out of the room on this issue.
On this issue especially.
Well, I will say maybe there was a really important transgender appreciation luncheon going on.
It's true.
Because, I mean, like, when you're ranking the priorities, transgender,
identity comes first, I will admit that.
Transgender, climate change, you don't know which order they're going to go in.
I love this, though, having gone through a life here with Glenn Beck for now, God, way too many years. He's always called this like doom and gloom guy. They used to make fun of Colbert would go on TV and say, they're in the doom room. They're saying the world's going to end in a decade. Yeah. Like, Glenn has never said the world's going to end in a decade. He's never been that scared about what the future holds.
I don't know how you can continue to get away with that strategy. Because literally, it's
for 10 years, you can get away with it. But then when it doesn't happen,
the world's going to end with
that. They've already done that.
The world's going to end with climate change. There was going to be people dead in the streets because of if we didn't pass Obamacare. There's going to be net neutrality for crying out loud. Yeah. Armageddon for if people's taxes went down.
How many times can you play the end of the world card?
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Apparently several. I mean, we're already to that point, and we still have parents telling their children, to go show up at, Senator Feinstein's office and plead with her because it's that big of an issue. Unbelievable. All right, back in a minute.
Remember Elizabeth Warren going on TV and saying, if we cut taxes here, people will die.
Before we go into overtime, I want to tell you guys good news for you.
Okay.
There is a woman, I believe in the UK. She has a breastfeeding kit that will help you men lactate.
Perfect.
So that you can chest feed. It's a kit that contains 9 months of progestin, and it's meant to stimulate the production of milk-producing glands in the male.
I'm going to kill myself.
And then another drug, you take another drug with that, that would result in lactation. And don't worry, because the kit also includes a pump and a compression vest.
Sounds really healthy for a child. I'm just going to say.
Natural.
So,
we got to keep it natural, guys.
I'm
breastfeeding. It's
really
natural.
excited. Yes, so you guys can take over the late night breastfeeding sessions. You may want to shave your chests though, because the baby doesn't want the bunch.
We
of
can
hair.
only eat organic, but the babies can eat this crazy hormone induced milk from men.
That's the world we're living in.
Come on.
All right, overtime starts next.